The Albanese government is backing an above-inflation pay rise for 3 million of our nation's lowest paid workers. Joining us live is the Workplace Relations Minister, Murray Watt. Minister, good to have you with us this morning. So why now on this in an election campaign, and why higher than usual?
Well, good morning, Pete. You would have seen over the last 3 years the Albanese government has worked really hard and made lots of changes to our laws to get wages moving again. And we're now at a point where for 15 months in a row we've seen wages rising above inflation in Australia. That's the complete opposite of what we saw before the election, when the coalition delivered 15 months in a row of wages falling compared to inflation. So this submission that we're making to the Fair Work Commission is really the next step in our plan to get wages moving again. We do believe that it's possible to have wage rises, especially for the lowest paid in our community, that are economically responsible and fair, and that's why we'll be arguing that the Fair Work Commission should grant an economically sustainable real wage increase for 3 million low-paid workers.
By its definition, won't an above-inflation pitch for so many workers be inflationary?
That hasn't been the experience to date, Peter. Obviously, in this term of office, each time the Fair Work Commission has considered the minimum wage, we've argued that the minimum wage should not go backwards. We've seen the Fair Work Commission award slightly higher than inflation wage rises for the lowest paid, and in fact at the same time we've brought inflation down. So that's one of the things we've been able to achieve this term, is bringing inflation down at the same time as lifting wages and creating more than 1 million new jobs.
Still not helping productivity though?
Well, we absolutely want to lift productivity in the economy. The question
but
is how you
despite the
get
changes
there.
though,
And from Labor's
it's not
point of
helping
view,
productivity.
We've already begun reforms. Well, I mean, we are coming off a very low base in productivity. The decade before we came to office under the Coalition saw the lowest productivity growth decade that we'd seen in Australia for 60 years. So it is going to take a bit of time to turn that around. But we've got an agenda to lift productivity. It's things like competition reform, investing in skills, the energy transition. What we don't agree with is the argument from Peter Dutton and the Coalition that to lift productivity you've got to cut Australians' wages and conditions. That's the American approach. It doesn't belong here in Australia. We want to see people get ahead, not get sent backwards.
So, Minister, does this put you at odds, though, with the RBA Governor, who just yesterday expressed concerns about increased wages running parallel with productivity? You say you can have both. She doubts that, though.
Well, as I say, our submission will be asking the Fair Work Commission to consider what wage rise would be possible in an economically sustainable way that does continue to see real wage growth for the lowest paid in our community. We're talking about 3 million people in Australia, cleaners, retail workers, childcare workers, not wealthy people. The minimum wage in Australia is only about $47,000 a year, so we believe we can afford to see those workers receive a pay rise that is economically sustainable, but also allows them to keep up with the cost of living and actually get a little bit ahead.
Okay, so have you got an actual figure, or is it just above inflation?
Yeah, typically the Australian government doesn't nominate a specific figure. We leave that for the Commission to work out. But we've sent a very strong signal to the Commission in our submission that we do think the real wage, that it should be a real wage increase, so above inflation. It's a matter for them to weigh up a whole range of factors and determine what's economically sustainable. But what we want to do as a Labor government is get wages continue to move. What we've seen from Peter Dutton and the Coalition is a long line of cuts that they want to make to wages. And when Peter Dutton cuts, it's Australians who lose.
Just a final one here, and with your previous hat on as Ag Minister, Murray, according to the papers today, our farmers should be bracing for a 10% hit from Donald Trump tomorrow morning. Is that what you're hearing? Are they right?
Well, we haven't been informed yet of any sort of particular outcome from the Trump administration. The expectation is that decisions will come through tomorrow. But we're certainly concerned about the risk of more tariffs being imposed on Australian industry, whether it be farmers or anyone else. And that's why we have been standing strong and taking it up to the Trump administration, arguing for Aussie farmers and arguing for Aussie industry. We think it would be a backward step for the US to impose these tariffs it'd be counterproductive for their own people because it would lift the prices, whether it be of beef or any other product that we sell. We'll keep fighting for Australia, whatever the decision is tomorrow.
But the Prime Minister can't get him on the phone, right, Mr Trump? Is that right?
I'm not sure what phone calls have happened lately, but certainly we've had a whole range of people making representations to the Trump administration. We hope that they will listen to our representations, but whatever the outcome, we'll keep fighting for Aussie farmers and Aussie industry.
Murray Watt, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.